And one thing I saw was, God and everybody were writing grants using those statistics, but the funding was never hitting the reservations where the statistics were. A lot of them are telling a story or even doing poverty porn, and the very statistics weren't being, affected. And I used to say that to my own tribe. For every penny you write a story about our kids, every single penny better be going to some service for them. And that doesn't mean your salary. I never agreed with a salary coming out of that stuff because it just takes away. So, a lot of work. And then we're addressing the other side of addiction. The families who are, have addicted ones in their family. In an Al-Anon type way, but not so much because it's not a cultural program. And it's kind of, a lot of parts of it go against our culture, So we're pretty much rewriting that whole thing to fit an Indigenous perspective. A project is coming to town called We the Many, and it was funded through the Mellon Foundation and Midwest Arts Midwest. And the local arts council, one of the people reached out and they were like, is this something you'd be interested? And I think at first, a lot of it was because I'm doing stuff, I'm an organizer, a community organizer. I know how to mobilize. I can, I like doing that stuff. So it started out that way, and it was to bring the three communities together of Siston, Old Agency, which was really the tribe, and Veblen, which has a large Hispanic population. Not just Hispanic.
How do you spell that? Bevlin, you said?
Veblen.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And they wanted to connect the communities. And I was like, okay. And they were talking about Indigenous art. And I thought, well, why doesn't a Native nonprofit, not myself, but why isn't a Native nonprofit leading the charge on this? Back to the following someone else's narrative to tell our story. I hate that. We can speak for ourselves. So it kind of felt like that, but I thought, well, let's see what this is about. And the beginning conversation was our expectations through the whole group. And there was probably like 20 people on the call on the Zoom. So at this point, this is when I think COVID was here now because we were Zooming. And that's when I said, my expectation is to tell our own story, tell our own narrative. I don't want someone to tell my story for me when I can speak myself. And I expect the same, for anybody else. So that's when they were talking, what's this project going to look like? What's it going to be? And it became a storytelling project, which was, neat. But I noticed the uncomfortable conversations weren't really, they were untalked about. And then me, I'm like, we need to talk about this, let's just throw it on the table and be honest. And the community up in Veblen, nobody knew how to talk. Nobody knew anybody. Do you know anyone up there? Like, do you know any Hispanic people? Or there's a huge dairy farm up there. So, that's where they work. And it started feeling like it was a unicorn. I'm like, did anybody go up there? There's 2 like pubs or whatever up there. Anybody go up there and hang out? Does anybody, And that surprised me because the reluctance to leave your comfortable bubble, So then I just went on Facebook and I checked into Veblen and said, do any of our relatives south of the border, do any of our Indigenous relatives south of the border interested in the storytelling project? And man, after that, I was just getting all these, and there's a whole community up there that are trying to do things, but they're just getting blocked at every, and they just want to have a nice, happy, family friendly community. And they're just like, no, no. And they don't know how to deal with those small town politics, So we had to address that, and it seemed like it was a little bit uncomfortable. And actually, so now with that project, I made a lot of friends that live in town that I didn't even know lived here. They didn't know I lived here either, So there's things happening that they want to continue even after the project is over.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Giving somebody out, giving somebody a seat at the table. Because we still, even with that, we still don't have one. I said, this is all great. The project is here. But at the level of the Arts Council, we can keep moving along and grow and expand and become that, or let it be an awesome project and then it goes back to where it was. It's here, there's duplicate everything. There's the native and then there's the white. Even the church, there's native church and white church, native Catholic church, native or white Catholic church. And I questioned that. I said, how come you guys don't go to the nice, very big, nice church? Well, they said, we go to this one, little beat up and down, mold. And they were like, this is because this is our church. They made them like be proud of that. I said, that's segregation. Of course, those people aren't ready for that conversation either. But I said, how come they're rebuilding? They got a new bell and all this stuff. And here you guys can't even get my entire life, the water fountain is still broken. I've never seen it work my entire life. And there's a big trash bag taped over it. Like, and that's where a lot of the wake services are. So it's like, how come the Catholic Church doesn't? If you're good enough to go to church, you're good enough to fix the water fountain. But that's just how I see it. And I'm like, nobody wants to question that? I don't go to church there, so I'm not going to question it. But you get married, you go there. Such a obvious line. And I don't know if it's like that in other reservation towns. I'm assuming it probably is. Public schools, we have 2 libraries, 2 Head Starts, 2 grocery stores, 2 workout places. It's like, they called us the Mississippi of the North. Did you see the whole thing with slave auction over in Faith, South Dakota? My husband and I always have conversations. I'm like, this shit right here. This is why. South Dakota is doing a lot better than it used to be. But there's so much work to be done. And I saw Representative Mars, this is our culture. You don't like it, don't come here. Like, and so what the hell kind of, what? And it's being said proudly, confidently. Where's, why is that? It's like, oh yeah, you know how they are. Oh, that's West River. It's like, this is why we have our own green book for the state that we know where not to go, we know which roads not to go on. Like that, growing up and dirty Indian, you guys are Bronx, you don't wash up. All of these things and getting older, I always thought it would die with the old racist people. But their kids and grandkids, it's not dying. It's just, the next generation's learning it. Keep having these conversations, so the younger people know how to question or ask the question. People who want to be allies to this movement is happening. I hope they understand the role that they have to play. They have to be the ones to have those conversations. I told my husband that when the whole thing with Kaepernick blew up. and, oh, gee, this guy, his friends speaking freely around him. They were like, why is he so worried about that? He should be worried about the murders in Chicago. I said, they can't dictate on what issues a Black person should address. That'd be like them trying to tell me, well, what are you working on youth suicide for when you should be over working on the park rangers and alcoholism. I said, but I can't tell them that. You have to tell them that. You have to explain to it. I said, you want to be a strong moving force? Then you have to have those conversations at the table when you're golfing, when you're bowling, because he golfs and he does all those all those things because that's his thing, And so he could, but I think what opened his eyes the most was there was an incident with a police officer, and it wasn't, nothing happened, but somebody's truck had died on the road, and I said, well, we'll go look. It sounded like it overheated, and I know how to work on cars. My grandpa showed me, and my dad, so I was like, we'll check it out. So we drove over there and popped the hood and looked, and a hose popped off, and there was no water in there or antifreeze. So I said, well, let's hook it up and we'll tow it back. Okay, so I hooked it up in the front of the truck that didn't work, and I was hooking it up to the back, and I heard a car, and I looked over, and it was a highway patrol that pulled up, and I got up slowly. I got scared. I know how the worth of my life to some people. I know I could just be another dead brown Indian, or another dead brown person, another dead, whatever. And I have things to do. I can't be, dying. So I put down the tow rope, and I got up, and I said, you deal with it. And I went over and acted like I was digging something, trying to look busy. And he went over and talked to the cop, and the cops, oh, you're okay. He saw Colin. Oh, everything's good. Yeah, okay. All right, have a good day. And he left. And Colin said, I've never seen you look like that before. And I said, like what? But then now I'm mad because I felt like there's all the after emotions that come. And he said, you look terrified. I said, I was. But then I'm mad. Now I'm mad because I was terrified and I shouldn't feel like that. I said, did you feel terrified? Oh. I said, I'll never know what that feels like. He's a really good advocate on that. And, at the store and someone's talking and he'll say something, well, you know how they are. And he'll say, said the old white man. What do you mean? He said, the old white man, you're the safest creature in the world. And what? He's like, yeah. Who's going to oppose you? Who's oppressed you in your life? No one. He said, of course. So I appreciate that he does that, but that's something that we need to happen at all the tables when somebody's talking like that or being like that, because there are people who have been convinced and have changed. They're not all lost causes. To see somewhere in the state, on our side of the state, a cultural exchange. They willfully melted when they came over. They wanted to be American. The castaway being whatever. My husband was telling me the story of, when his family came over from Norway and how they were like, we're not Norwegian anymore, we're American. Never had the chance to want to melt. They came in, did everything to make us melt. So